Hello everybody, and welcome to the new Mindscape. In this video, I'm going to be talking about observing the mindscape through mindfulness practice. As we've talked about before, our mind is usually swimming in a sea of objects of consciousness, and it's not aware of how it's influenced by thoughts, emotions, desires, and beliefs. In the past few videos, we began to consider the implications of Lao Tzu's uncarved block. What if all the concepts, meanings, and objects of consciousness that clutter and carve up our mind and our life, what if they actually cover up a deeper and more profound meaning, our true self? Then, how can we break through the encrusted layers of ideas and thoughts, and thus to gain insight into the ultimate reality? Objects of consciousness include not only our consciousness of concrete things, but also abstract qualities, meanings, ideas, and concepts. All of these things fill up our mindscape and are just as real in our lives as the outside world is. Although we spend most of our time learning about the outside world and how to change small parts of it, most of us know very little about our own inner mindscape, and even less about how to change it for the better. One of the main concerns of religion is to transform our mindscape, to align it with what it describes as the invisible structure of the cosmos, and to populate our mindscape with experiences, concepts, symbols, and beings that aim to connect us with the deeper meanings and powers of the cosmos. And by transforming the mindscape, it aims to transform the way we act in the world and change it. For most people, this is an unconscious process. We gradually absorb cultural or religious elements into our mindscape through imitation, enculturation, and immersion in social environments, practices, and teachings. But there also exist, in many religious traditions, practices and techniques that aim to lead us to become consciously aware of our thoughts, to purify ourselves of unhealthy thoughts and ideas, to become aware of deeper truths about ourselves and about reality, and to construct what I would call a new mindscape. Some of these practices are nowadays called meditation. Meditation is widespread in several religious traditions, and it's becoming increasingly popular. The word meditation has many meanings. At a basic level, meditation means to think about and to spend time thinking deeply about something. To meditate on a passage, for example, to meditate on an idea, or to read something and to reflect about it. All of these activities mean to meditate at one level. And there's another more technical meaning of meditation, which is now often used in English. This refers to disciplines to train the activity of the mind. There are hundreds and even thousands of different techniques of meditation, but they're all concerned with training the mind and or the body. They're concerned with cleaning the mindscape or constructing a spiritual mindscape. So, how do you train your mind? Meditation techniques often involve specific postures or movements of the body, or specific forms of breathing, or specific procedures for focusing the mind. For example, some methods involve sitting in a specific cross-legged position or standing erect. You need to enact these positions and movements to gain certain insights on reality. Meditation techniques also often make use of visualizations, which literally involve creating and focusing on an object of consciousness. For example, one meditation technique involves imagining or visualizing a lotus flower opening and closing in your lower abdomen, following the rhythm of breathing in and out. The lotus is a common symbol in Asian religions. Just as the pure white flower grows out of putrid mud, it evokes the idea of our pure soul rising out of the impurities and pollution of this world. So to visualize this lotus in our mindscape is to, in a sense, empower this idea to purify our own minds. Now, because meditation is a form of mental training and exercise rather than a logical argument, it's actually hard to talk about it. It's like sports. You can't say that you understand sports if you've only read about sports or watched a football game once or a couple of swimming matches. You experience the reality of football quite differently if you're playing the game rather than just watching or talking about it. Even if you've played only a few times, you'll have a much greater insight on the game than if you've never played it. But even then, how could that compare to somebody who trains regularly? Can you imagine someone saying, "Oh, I just practiced sports for the first time. I did sports for 10 minutes the other day, and now I know what sports is. Sports is very good for me." Or what if somebody said, "I tried sports for 10 minutes and it doesn't work"? First of all, there's so many different sports. The realities of football, swimming, or wrestling are quite different from each other. And secondly, any type of sport requires a lot of training. Our mind is the same. The mind has many different functions and powers. And there are many different methods to train different aspects of our mind and consciousness. So, for example, an important foundation for many meditation techniques involves training the breath. At first, this is actually very hard. It's like any sport. It's something that you train and learn to exercise. But after a long time of practice, it becomes natural and easy. At that point, you can easily enter a state of stillness. After only a few seconds, if you're well trained. But it's impossible if you're not trained. Actually, none of these techniques can work without any training. If your breath isn't trained, you can't enter into a state of deep relaxation. There are many different types of meditation. One of them is called mindfulness, which involves observing moment by moment the ideas, feelings, and mental states that come and go from our consciousness. It entails, in effect, to stand back and to watch what is going on in your mindscape. Usually our consciousness is completely captured by whatever comes to our mind at any particular moment. We're controlled by our feelings, perceptions, and ideas without even being aware of it. Mindfulness meditation involves observing the mindscape with detachment, becoming aware of thoughts and feelings as they arise, then letting them go without becoming attached to them and without fighting against them. Suppose you're a scientist engaged in observing the world, or some parts of the world, some parts of the material world outside of you, that involves a certain distance and detachment from the object observed in order to observe it objectively and completely. Usually you can't observe what's going on in your mind because you're like fish swimming in water. Your mind is thinking all the time, always running around, wandering and jumping here and there. It's hard for the mind to focus on anything. How can we possibly be conscious of these things that happen in our own minds? Because our consciousness is part of our minds. In a sense, it's virtually impossible to engage in a detached observation of our minds. At the same time, we see the world with our minds, which are cluttered. Our minds are cluttered with so many different ideas, things, and objects of consciousness. All these things are affecting our understanding of the world, as if we were wearing spectacles on which many different things have been painted, so that we can't have a clear vision of anything in the world. In mindfulness meditation, the purpose is to put yourself into a situation of observing everything that pops up in your mind. In a sense, to see what happens in your mindscape and to see it with detachment. You can see these things coming and going. Through this kind of practice, gradually the consciousness of your mindscape becomes more and more clear. And as a result, the consciousness of other things also becomes clearer. A basic technique of mindfulness is to be aware of your perceptions, your emotions, and your feelings by naming them as soon as they appear to your consciousness. This can be done sitting, walking, or standing. Just to name each thought or feeling, name it quietly to yourself as soon as it pops up. Why should we name the object of consciousness as soon as it appears? The purpose is to make you detached from it. Because when something comes to your mind, it controls your mind completely. So imagine you think of a new iPhone. At that moment, that thought dominates your mind. But by naming the thought, you step back from it. You say, that is a thought of an iPhone. By naming it, you detach yourself from it, and it becomes separate from you. You focus on it, and you become aware of the reality of it. By naming it, then it becomes separate from you, and then you let it go. So, at the end of this video, there's some links to a set of videos by the Buddhist monk Yuttadhammo Bhikkhu, which provides some simple instructions on mindfulness meditation, as well as some basic guiding principles. He states that meditation is about more than attaining a peaceful state of mind. Just as medication, i.e. medicine, aims to cure the sicknesses of the body, meditation aims to cure the sicknesses of the mind. These are states of stress, worry, anger, addiction, delusion, conceit, arrogance, worry, and fear. These, he says, are unnatural states of being. By becoming aware of these states through mindfulness, they gradually lose their grip on our consciousness, and they fade away. Meditation then brings the body back to its natural state of clarity, peace, and happiness. The monk explains that mindfulness is to have clear thoughts. He says, to clearly experience a phenomenon as it arises, to know it clearly, to see it for what it is, and not to be addicted, attached, or upset or averse to it. So simply know it, and to experience it for what it is. So I'd like you to watch these videos and to try out the technique for yourself. Find a quiet time and place and just give it a try.